Let's move now to our next story as freezing Arctic air from Siberia pushes its way into Central Europe. Northern France, Italy and also parts of Britain have seen temperatures well below zero this week. When the Europeans attempt to heat their homes, though, they may find that there is no fuel.
We have not been warned by the Russian side at all, but I can say today that most likely they have decided to stop exporting Russian gas to European countries through Ukrainian territory altogether.
On January 7th, the head of Kiev's state energy firm, Naftogaz, says Russia's reduced gas supply has had a knock-on effect for Europe. Will there be gas? That's the first question Europeans now ask whenever Russia and Ukraine head into a new pricing row.
We feel the gas crisis already by the cold. It's very cold outside and inside too. Our central heating has been cut down and we try to keep warm with an electric heater, but it's not the same.
Moscow turned off gas supplies intended for Ukraine's domestic use on January 1st this year amid accusations of stealing and a dispute over pricing. Everything that followed seemed like déjà vu after a similar pricing row between Russia and Ukraine that briefly disrupted the gas supply to Europe in 2006, the first of 4 major disputes since then. Although 3 years have passed, the two sides continue to trade accusations in precisely the same manner and on almost the same subjects.
The Ukrainian side openly acknowledged that it has been stealing gas and is not ashamed of this.
Russia's Gazprom claimed that it was owed $2.1 billion by Ukraine's Naftogaz, and it says it won't supply any more gas to its neighbor until the debt is paid. But the Ukrainian side tells a different story.
If the Russian side continues to supply natural gas to Ukraine at the same reduced level, in about 10 days a very serious situation may arise.
We cannot describe this position from Ukraine as anything other than blackmail. They are blackmailing Gazprom, Russia and Western Europe.
This time around, it's still pricing that's occupying the microphone. On January 1st, Ukraine suggested a 2009 price of $201 per 1,000 cubic meters, together with an increase in the transit tariff that Russia pays Ukraine from $1.7 to $2 per 1,000 cubic meters per 100 kilometers. Russia, by contrast, insisted on a price of $250, already a reduced rate for Ukraine. Moscow also refused any rise in the transit tariff. When the first round of negotiations failed to reach an agreement, Russia showed an even tougher stance and demanded the full European market price of $450. Ukraine countered with a transit tariff of at least $2.2. So what is a fair price?
Seemingly, Russia is abiding by its promise that the Central Asian states will receive $340 for their gas delivery. This gas is then sold to Ukraine, preferably at a higher price. But taking the current Ukrainian economic situation into consideration, a price of more than $400 is nowhere near reality.
Although Ukraine secured $4.5 billion from the International Monetary Fund last November, sinking world demand has hammered the steel and chemical sectors, which account for more than half of its exports, and popped a domestic consumer bubble. Indebted Ukrainians now face rising unemployment after industrial output sank 20 to 30%.
Of course we are concerned, very much so, because tomorrow we may have to live without heat, without food, without a salary going unpaid or cut down. But if we are left without gas, we do not know what will happen to us.
While Ukraine's economy heads into its worst recession for a decade, politicians are gearing up for a presidential election in just 12 months' time. And this has made it less likely that Ukrainian leaders will accept such a sharp price hike.
Ukraine, like many former states of the Soviet Union, is unable to pay the same price for Russian gas that Germany or Italy pays. And we know very well why that happened. 70 years of Soviet planned economy made Ukraine a much poorer country than Germany or Italy. And Russia, until now, showed understanding for this.
But it seems this favorable treatment has come to an end. When added to issues such as NATO membership and support for Georgia, this dispute has dragged the relationship between Kiev and Moscow close to an all-time low. In August 2008, during the armed conflict between Russia and Georgia over South Ossetia, Ukrainian President Viktor Yushchenko paid a visit to the conflict zone, labeling his trip as a mission to show that Georgia was not alone. And the situation deteriorated when evidence of authorized Ukrainian weapons were found in Georgia.
When people and military systems are used to kill Russian soldiers, it's an alarming signal for us. Only a few years ago, it would be inconceivable, even in our nightmares, that Russians and Ukrainians would be fighting each other.
Analysts say when the time comes for the Ukrainian leaders to decide, they may be forced to choose one of two ways.
Ukraine cannot have its cake and eat it. Ukrainian leaders have to decide between pro-Western policies and favorable gas prices. If the Ukrainian government decides that the future of Ukraine lies with the West, then they will have to know that the basis for their relations with Russia will be different. I think it's a fair assessment.
The row has raised new doubts about Moscow's reliability as an energy supplier, fueling suspicions in the West that the Kremlin will use energy to bully its pro-Western neighbors. But some experts think otherwise.
Until now, Russia has been really cautious about the use of energy as a strategic weapon. Revenue from energy exports has become a key source of income for the Russian government. As it's primarily a commercial action, energy trade provides a win-win solution for both sides. Disputes like this will hinder Russia's earning power as well as its credibility in the international arena. And that is not what Russians want to see.
Gazprom hopes to solve its annual problem with Ukraine by shipping gas directly to Europe. The company has grand plans to build pipelines that would eventually send gas straight to Germany and through the Balkans to Western Europe. But that scheme will take years to complete. And before that happens, checking to see if their gas stoves still work could remain a regular routine for European consumers every New Year.
Now, as that tug-of-war continues, a picture of a warm, cozy winter in Europe is looking less and less likely. Other issues in Ukraine have made this pricing conflict even more sensitive than ones in the past few years. And for now, at least, European countries may have to count on their reserves to beat the cold. Up next, 30 years of Sino-US relations. Stay with us for that.